And we've seen a bit of a dip on the market this morning because of the ramifications there. Joining me now is the Assistant Minister for Trade and Future Made in Australia, Tim Ayres. Tim, thanks so much for your time. How worried are you about this ongoing trade war? I mean, he long threatened it, didn't he?
Well, it's certainly been the case that, there's a change of administration. There is a change of approach on these questions that's long been apparent. That President Trump would take a different approach on these questions. I should say that notwithstanding that, there have been changes in the approach in the United States over the course of the last 3 or 4 years. In Australia, we have been prepared for all of this.
Oh, so you have been prepared for this. You took those threats seriously during the campaign. What have you done in preparation for it?
Well, of course, a government that is focused on Australia's interests, that has, as I've said before in your program, Laura, in real distinction to the previous government, we haven't been blowhards on these issues, but we have worked in a calm and consistent way in Australia's national interest on the trade questions, whether it's the Southeast Asia economic strategy in our region. Working across the trade and strategic areas, which are closely related now in a way that they weren't perhaps 5 years ago. We have focused on them in the relationship with the European Union, where we have taken a calm and consistent approach to that, and because we have not been able to secure the right outcome for the Australian agricultural sector, we have held back from pursuing that agreement. We'd like to conclude it. We'd like to conclude it, but we're focused on the national interest, not ribbon cutting and not headlines, in terms of the obstacles to Australian trade in China. Work through those issues in a calm and consistent way. And on all of these questions, your viewers, workers who work in export-exposed industries, firms and employers can be confident that this government will be focused on the national interest. We've done the work. We understand the environment that we're in. We're not speculating about what might happen. We're focused on
what is. So are you saying the diversification of our trading partners is kind of giving us a bit of a buffer here, or have we not done enough of that?
Well, there's two bits of this, if I can answer it that way, Laura. The first is, of course, we've got to deal with the immediate questions. And diversifying Australia's markets is very important. But it's also, as Trade Minister Don Farrell has made really clear, it's also about diversifying the products and services that Australia offers to the world and making our economy more resilient. That's what the Future Made in Australia program is about. Not
but
just
how do we make our country more resilient
overseas,
when we've got the most expensive energy that we've had in 30 years? And no one can really tell us what the total system cost of Labor's renewable plan is. Can you tell us this morning? What is the total system cost?
I'm very glad you raised it. You don't make electricity prices and energy prices lower for Australian industry and households by making them higher. That's what Peter Dutton's nuclear
That's not exactly a revelation. I asked you about your plan, not the nuclear plan. Could we stick on that? What is the total system cost of the renewable plan?
Yeah. Let me just make this point, Laura. Peter Dutton's nuclear reactor strategy in terms of aluminium, right, which we are focused on.
I don't even want to talk about his at the moment. I want to talk about your plan. What is the total? That's a pretty simple question.
Yeah, well, it's a question that the Energy Minister would be very happy to engage with you about. I just say,
fair enough.
Peter
You are not the
Dutton's
Energy Minister,
about our system.
but Frontier Economics. Let's not talk about what Peter Dutton says about it. Let's go to someone independent. Frontier Economics. You've used them before. They say it'll cost around $600 billion, well above the 121 touted by Chris Bowen. So, do we trust Frontier Economics or not?
$121 billion, Laura, that's the answer.
Well, that wasn't the answer from Frontier. Frontier said 600.
Look, it's a free bit of modelling that hasn't worked out very well for Peter Dutton.
Well, nor have any modelling from any government departments or governments in the past either, I might say.
Laura, I'm very happy to talk about Peter Dutton's modelling because the costings in that assume
I want to talk about your modelling. How can we assume that 120 billion is going to be right when Frontier Economics says it'll be, 5 times that?
Well, you're raising the modelling, Peter Dutton's modelling with me. It has as the fundamental basis for the modelling that is done in there, it relies upon the AEMO progressive change scenario, and that relies upon halving electricity-intensive manufacturing in Australia. That's aluminium and steel gone. So you add car industry, steel industry, aluminium industry. What else does the previous government and a future, if Peter Dutton was ever to be the Prime Minister, electricity-intensive manufacturing gone, and all of those opportunities for our future squandered. Yeah. And he's out there being a blowhard about these questions. Like he said again yesterday, it doesn't matter how many times you repeat the lie, it is still a lie. He says 28,000 kilometres of transmission required for the program for rolling out the electricity network. That is a lie by a factor of 7.
Well, okay, it's still around 50 billion for the transmission cost, and it's your government that promised $275 off each and every electricity bill by now. It's gone up twice.
Nuclear program.
It's gone up $500. Yeah. So where's the 275?
The problem with all of these things are hard work, Laura. That's the truth. We are a long way through the electricity rollout.
I mean, you guys said 3 years.
We are a long way through the electricity rollout.
And the Ukraine war had already broken out.
In many of our states, over 40%. We have an ageing fleet of coal-fired power stations, which are responsible for unplanned redundancy every single day of the week over the course of the last 2 years.
I get that,
we
but
are
what's
putting
the
in place
plan?
the lowest cost energy.
The batteries don't hold up. The transmission costs are a massive part of our bill. We've got AI as a next frontier. You've got Bill Gates building his own nuclear power centre to fund to build all the data centres that AI is going to require and the enormous amount of energy. I mean, you're talking about a future made in Australia. It's pretty hard to see how a high cost energy environment is going to be at all beneficial for that.
Because you focus on don't get distracted by the blizzard of things that the Liberals and Nationals say on this question.
They haven't said anything about AI. I'm looking at what's happening in the United States with this, an explosion of AI. Everyone can see that this is where we need to be our best. And we're telling people in New South Wales on really hot days to please turn the air conditioning down. It seems crazy.
Well, Laura, you are right. We haven't heard anything from the Liberals and Nationals on AI because their energy plan forces that offshore. It says don't bother knocking for investment in Australia on electricity industrial processes, which is what AI is. There is substantial AI investor interest in Australia right now because of our low cost, reliable energy system. Like that is that now you move to expensive nuclear and they're gone. It costs too much. It takes too long. It pushes costs up for ordinary households. And as we've seen today, if you've got solar on your roof, well, Peter Dutton's tax on solar in order to make way for
rooftop
his
solar is not going to build data centres
program
or fuel them. But anyway,
but households who are getting a good deal out of solar now will get smashed to the tune of $1,000 a year. Will get smashed to the tune of $1,000 a year if Peter Dutton introduces this nuclear reactor plan. It is a bad plan, poorly thought through, and it requires industries like aluminium that employ tens of thousands of people to go to China or the Middle East, somewhere else, to close Tomago and Boyne Island in central Queensland down in order to make way for dodgy nuclear reactors that will cost too much, take too long and won't contribute enough electricity to make a meaningful difference. Because even under Peter Dutton's costings, they don't shift the dial on the electricity requirement that Australia does. He is projecting a smaller, weaker, less productive, less manufacturing intensive economy because of his ideological obsession and incapacity to grapple with the facts and the economics and the science and the interests of regional communities.
Has shifted, hasn't it, between, clean or reliable? We certainly don't have reliable or cheap.
Well, why do we have to make regional communities poorer for Peter Dutton to try and succeed? That's what his message
that logic?
is.
Sorry, what's that logic?
Closing down manufacturing, closing down electricity-intensive manufacturing, which is what his plan does. That is fundamental to the modelling and the costings, the dodgy costings claims he makes, is closing down electricity-intensive manufacturing. So they say one thing, but their costings rely entirely on a different scenario. It's a bit like,
it's the costings. I'm sorry, it's a costing and some modelling we've been given by every successive government, really, over the last 20 years. None of them have been accurate. I mean, that's not right. I mean, if you want to get down to the consumer base here, you guys promised $275 off each and every power bill, and it's not even that much. $275 a year off your power bill is a drop in the ocean. Here we are 3 years later, and you still can't have any upfront conversation about any minister in your government about why that has happened and why they promised in the first place, because the Ukraine war broke out well after this promise was made, and then you can't repeat that. So going into the next term, you're not even willing to make any other promises about the cost of energy coming down.
Well, I'll tell you what's a big number, $1,200, a number that they haven't quibbled with, right, that they haven't argued with, that for the average household, Peter Dutton's nuclear reactor plan will make electricity $1,200 more expensive from day one because of all of the costs associated
but you say day one's about 15 years
with building
away.
Nuclear reactors.
I mean, it's pretty telling, Tim, isn't it? It's pretty telling, Tim, isn't it, that this morning when we're trying to talk about your energy plan, all you want to do is talk about his.
Well, because it's so bad, Laura, and because that additional cost is not just about the $600 billion cost of building
the transition hasn't been that great so far, wouldn't you admit? I mean, it's more expensive and less reliable. Someone stuffed up along the way.
It's also about the maintenance costs of trying to keep this ageing fleet of ready to close down coal-fired power stations alive. Now,
but that's not.
You remember
that's not the
David
bulk
Littleproud
of the cost, isn't it?
It is a huge cost.
Yeah, and the transmission lines being built. Yeah,
and it just goes to show these guys aren't up to it. Like Peter Dutton and David Littleproud say we should sweat these coal assets for a bit longer.
Nor are you.
You would only say that if you hadn't been in one recently.
When are prices coming down? When are going to people be told on a hot day to put their dishwasher on at midnight rather than 6 o'clock?
Laura, these guys live and hope for there to be some disruption in the electricity system, just the way that they live and hope for things to be.
This is what really annoys people.
For things to be harder.
This is what really annoys people, though, that they're told that the other guys that haven't been in power for 3 years, it's all their fault, and you're not willing to take any responsibility. Oh, we should have done better. We shouldn't have promised that $275 would come off your bill. Instead, there's a taxpayer subsidy, a rebate, that brings it down artificially. But that's only because there's a cost of living crisis. So we're all paying for it.
Laura, focus on the facts. You say there are reliability problems.
I am focused on the facts. Where's the $275?
Every day that we're about to have a hot day, Peter Dutton and poor old Angus Taylor and Ted O'Brien, God bless him, are out there predicting that the power's going to go off. And it doesn't go off. Every day there's a hot day.
Premier Chris Minns stood up last time here and said, please don't put your air conditioning on. It's going to be a 40-degree day.
So let me finish the point.
And it's not them, it's AEMO, by the way, that warned that we're at risk of blackouts. I mean, we get these reports constantly saying the same thing.
And you know what? Where there are system failures, it is inevitably because of some storm that wipes out a transmission line, or because a coal-fired generator clapped out coal-fired generator fails,
and renewables don't step up.
Unplanned shutdown.
Yeah.
And they step up. And the system is being built. It is being built in an effective way. It is the lowest cost reliable solution for Australia.
No, it's not. It's not right now.
The nuclear reactor plan from Peter Dutton, the nuclear reactor plan for Australia from Peter Dutton is the most expensive, proposition. It will cost more. It will take too long because we have never built these things before. It runs absolutely counter to us having the world's best solar and wind resources and building nuclear reactors, imposing them on communities that don't want them. And in the end, after all of this, it doesn't deliver, it doesn't touch the sides of Australia's electricity demand.
A lot of people that don't want wind farms in their community as well. But look, Tim, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we need a whole hour for this. Let's try and plan and do that. Thank you for joining the program, as always. We've got to leave it there. We'll speak to you soon. I
always just say there's a big gap between what Peter Dutton says and what he's done and what he's planning to do. Same thing on big cuts for services for Australians.
All right,
it's the same thing. And the rhetoric's going to catch up with him. See you, Laura. Good on you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's going to be, that's probably sets a tone for the week in Canberra. I think it was telling that Tim Ayres wanted to talk more about Dutton's plan than his own government's plan then for that 10 minutes. But look, it's an interesting debate, one we need to have and one I'm very willing to do so.